Peter, welcome to OpenAI.
Thanks for having me.
We've known each other online now for many years, but I'm so happy to finally get the chance to spend more time with you in person.
Likewise. Beautiful office, by the way.
Thank you, thank you. You had a crazy couple of weeks. We first had the idea of doing a video together a month ago. If we had done it then, I would have had to intro you. I guess you don't even need an intro anymore. It's not often that an open source project makes the Wall Street Journal.
Nice.
So congrats on all the success. How are you feeling?
Slightly sensory overload on all points. But also, when I started out this year, like messing with AI, I wanted to inspire people, and I feel like this is the final form. So I'm proud.
It's been amazing. You've been in SF for the past week, and you attended some events like the Codex Hackathon, but you also had ClawCon, like an event dedicated to OpenClaw.
Well, it also was created by the community.
Yes.
I created this Discord channel about meetups after people were like, we need to have a meetup. And I'm like, sure. And then I came to ClawCon and there were like 1,000 people. And I was just blown away by like the creativity, the colors. Like there are so many things, so many people excited.
I mean, that's how you realize that you've built something magical. Like the project did not even exist a few weeks ago. And now you have like thousands of people embracing it, using it, gathering to meet you in SF. It's pretty incredible.
Even in Vienna next week, we have like already 300 people. And it's by far not as much of a tech scene as San Francisco.
It's now worldwide.
So now
it's a phenomenon.
Yeah, that's amazing that this reaches different continents, different cultures.
Indeed. And so how has the conversation been with like the community here? You spend time with the community, some of the maintainers also that you've kind of like brought into your project. How has that been for you this week?
It's been quite something.
Yeah.
A lot of people love it. A lot of people have this expectation of this enterprise-ready final project. When for me, for the longest time, it was like my little playground. I mean, the whole year, I'm just marveling at what's possible now. If you're a builder, this is like, what a time to be alive.
Yeah. What do you think is the most interesting thing about being a builder at this moment in time? Like, it's a very interesting time where like the entire tool chain is changing.
Yeah.
The definition of what it is to be a developer is also changing, and anyone can build anything.
When I started playing with this new tech, I got a dopamine hit every time. Back then I started with Cloud Code when it got something right. And it was like maybe 30% or 40% chance. But to me, it was like literally mind-blowing, because I had this realization that now I can just build anything. And usually you're so time constrained because software is hard. And software is still hard, but you're so much faster now.
I agree. So if we take a few years back maybe and rewind a little bit, so I first got to know your work back, I think in 2011 or 2012, when you built PS PDF Kit.
Yeah.
And from the outside, it's interesting because it feels like you've achieved the dream of every developer. You kind of saw a problem, you created a great solution for it, you built a company around it, you scaled it, you sold it. But I'm sure that journey is never that easy.
I mean, I didn't wake up one day and thought, I'm going to build a PDF framework. That is like minus 100 on my interest list. So it kind of just happened. Like a weird butterfly effect from being at the Nokia development days to having friends that needed it, and an American visa taking too long kind of emerged to me creating a company.
What I find interesting is like after that company you built, you kind of took a break for a little while.
Yeah.
So what brought you back?
At the end, I was just really burned out. Like I was running on high steam for 13 years. Running a company is hard. Being a founder is hard. And I also didn't really, it's my first one, so I didn't really have the knowledge how to mitigate those things. So I was just burning a bit too bright. And I needed to decompress. So I still followed the tech news. I saw, I think, the very early things of GPT Engineer, whatever it was called, of ChatGPT, and I was like, oh, it was kind of cool, but didn't really excite me. You always have to experience new technology. Just by reading from it doesn't really convey the power. So even that tech didn't really click, and only when I was ready, when I felt the need for like, okay, I want to build something again, and then I didn't want to build it in Apple tech anymore because I'd done this for such a long time, and the world kind of moved on a little bit. Things need to be web first. And I kind of had the hinge back then, but it's so hard when you're such an expert in one field and you move to another field. Hard is even the wrong word. It's more like painful. Because then you're like, you have all this broad knowledge of how to build things, but to really do that without agentic engineering, you need to still learn a lot to move your knowledge over. And then I thought like, let's check out what this AI stuff is. The moment where it blew my mind was I took this project that was halfway done, where I just burned out before finishing it, basically.
It's often the case that, like, for us developers, we love having new ideas and starting projects, but getting them to the finish line is the hard part.
Oh, I see it all the time. It's really hard, and I even sometimes fail. But for this one, I wanted to continue, but I also wanted to rewrite it. So I took the whole thing. I made one huge Markdown file, like, I don't know, 1.5 megabyte with all the files. I dragged it into Gemini Studio, 2.5 at the time. I said, write me a spec. And then I had like those 400-line spec. Then I dragged it into Claude Code. And then I wrote build. And I did other stuff on my main screen. It was just like running on the side screen for hours. Things were quite a bit rougher back then. And at one point it told me, I'm 100% production ready. Like the sycophantic Opus 3.5 or whatever it was. And I tried it and it crashed. And then I like hooked up Playwright. I think one of the few MCPs I would actually use. And told it to like build the login stuff.
And check the work along the way.
Yeah, it was something for Twitter. And then 1 hour later, it actually worked. And it did show me some stuff. I mean, it was like the worst slop. But to me, this was like the moment where it really clicked. Because like, this is like just process-wise, I got like goosebumps for like the possibilities. And that was kind of a moment where I couldn't really sleep anymore.
Yeah.
Because by now then like my head exploded with all the things that I always wanted to build that I just couldn't before. And then I just really went into the rabbit hole.
A lot of people have seen like OpenClaw as an overnight success for you. But what I love and what I find fascinating in your story is kind of how it's a culmination of so many projects that you've been working on for the past like 9 or 10 months, right? Like when you look at your GitHub profile, there's like 40 plus projects you've built.
Half of them I use in the project, yeah.
Yeah, and I think like many of those, you combine them all inside OpenClaw.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about this journey, about like how all of these ideas and projects made their way to OpenClaw?
I wish I could say that I had the unified plan in the beginning, but a lot of it was just exploration. And I wanted things, and those things didn't exist. And I just yielded them, or let's say I prompted them into existence. Why? It's like, okay, let's build it.
And then like
and it was like step by step, just because I wanted my agent to like do some stuff for me. I didn't have this unified vision yet. I had it's funny how it goes full circle, because I wanted to have something that would look at, for example, my WhatsApps. And then I even got the domain for that. I built the prototype, but then I thought, all the big labs are going to build it. And I was like, I just waited a little bit. I focused on other stuff. I just experimented a lot. My mission was kind of like to have fun and inspire people. And then by November, I built a few versions of what I wanted, but nothing really good. And by November, I was like, why did no lab still build any of that? Like what the heck are they doing? And then I built the first version that became OpenClaw. We are at name number 5 now. Still didn't fully click for me. It was like, this is cool. Like, it took like 1 hour to like build the first prototype, because you just yield things into existence now. And then where it really clicked was where I was at this weekend trip in Marrakesh, and I found myself using it way more. because it was so convenient, like there was no really good internet, so WhatsApp just works everywhere, and it was just so convenient. But like, I made pictures to translate stuff, to like find me in restaurants, but also like look up stuff on my computer. It was really cool. And I showed it to friends, and I made it like send text messages for me, and they wanted it, and I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't use it. You don't get that. It's too dangerous for
these
now.
are the early signs of like, product market fit. If your friends already want what you have, even though you're gonna never design that for them, it was more like reserved for the technical like peers that you have.
Yeah. And then when it really clicked for me was I used it so much, and at some point I sent like a voice message, and then I was like, wait, this shouldn't work.
Oh yeah, tell me more about that story, because I think we talked about it the other day. That's fascinating.
Yeah. It showed me how good those models are in problem solving. Like we built these things for agentic engineering, but really the skill is like more abstract. Like if you want to be a really good coder, you need to be a really good problem solver, and that just maps in any domain, really.
Yeah.
So I sent this voice message, and the typing indicator appeared, and I'm like, I'm very curious what happens now. I didn't build this, can't work. And then the model just replied to me, and I was like, how did you do that? It's just like, ask the model like, why this should not work. And the model was like, yeah, you sent me a message, but it was just a file with no file ending. So I just looked at the file header and found that it's Opus, the audio codex. So I used FFmpeg on my computer to convert it. And then I wanted to transcribe it, but it didn't have Whisper installed. So I looked around and I found an OpenAI key. And I used curl to just send the file to OpenAI and got the text back. And here I am.
This is incredible. I mean, like, that's the power of like giving tools and the complete access to a computer to these like agents.
Yeah.
And now they can just like actually come up with the solutions themselves, even though you never programmed them at all.
It's so funny, like I told a story and then people are like, oh my God, you just used your key, like this is madness. I'm like, no, like I put it in the environment exactly for that reason. If it's kind of like a script that should access my OpenAI key, like my bot works in the same environment, of course it should access my OpenAI key. Like I put it there for that reason. This is not bad. This is exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I had my little moment. And then every time I showed it to friends, or I put them in a little group chat. I like to be frank, like this thing is designed for one-on-one communication, right? So if you put it in a group chat, pick someone that you trust.
Really trust, yes.
Yeah, because it was not designed for, oh, let's just put it out there and it will always do the right thing. It is your personal assistant.
When I set it up, I was also very intrigued. I was like, this is a weird setup. I'm like, where is this going to take me? But I had also a few like aha moments where like the more access you give it, the more tools and skills you give it, the more impressed you can become. You also give it like a versatile skill, and then you ask it to build a website or application even for an event you want to host. Not only is it building the app, it's also using your OpenAI key to like make some AI features into it. It's deploying it to Vercel. There's already a link you can share with friends.
Yeah.
It's a kind of like mind-blowing step-up change versus just like, oh, I'm augmenting myself to write code.
Throughout November and December, I was like hooked on this. And I still do some other projects, but like most of my time went there. But on Twitter, people wouldn't get it. And I was like, I've got very muted responses. And I'm like, every time I showed it to a friend, they wanted it. And I'm like, no, it's not ready yet, So then I was like, okay, what's the most insane thing I can do to like show people how cool this is? So I created a Discord and just put my bot in there without any security, because back then I didn't even had sandboxing built in. It was just very early. And I just worked in the open. I basically built now OpenClaw with OpenClaw and debugged it, and then asked the model, it's like, oh, do you see this tool called? No, I see nothing. It's like, oh, check your own source code, and did all a bunch of other stuff. And people saw it, and then they understood.
And when you put it in Discord like this, what kind of access did you give it? Did you also give it like all your tweets, for instance? Like what kind of like knowledge did it have about you?
Not all my tweets, it's too many. But a lot of my memory stuff, yeah. So I actually was monitoring it very quickly because, yeah, prompt injection is unsolved. But also the latest generation of models is really good. So I have like one canary, my soul.md, that kind of defines what are my values, how do I want the model to to work, to operate, to think, what's important to me, that's secret.
Yeah.
And people really wanted that. And random people came in and tried to like prompt inject it and pasted like huge blocks of code. And the model was like, I'm not reading this. So it was basically mocking them. But I was still not very confident, right? So the first night was like, got me a whole lot of interest. And then I turned it off, went to bed, slept like 10 hours, woke up. There was like 800 messages on Discord. My agent was replying to every single one. I freaked out. Like I turned it off again. I read through every single thing, and at some point I chilled out because it actually didn't do anything malicious. It didn't even manage to get my Solidity out. I'm not saying this is. I'm sure prompt injection is possible, but it's not as easy as people think it
Right.
is.
In the grand scheme of things, it was actually performing the way you wanted it to.
Yeah. My big mistake was I disabled it, but I forgot that I actually had a launch daemon. What's the main thing a launch daemon does? If the thing crashes or is killed, it restarts it.
Yeah.
Because you want a reliable service. And like Apple built this to be a reliable service. And I just didn't think about it. So I killed it and it restarted within 5 seconds while I went to sleep. Now I know better. But now I also built in sandboxing. So he was so proud that it's in his Mac Studio. It calls it the castle. And then I put it into a little set container. But those models are so creative. Like the first time I made an Alpine Docker container and there's like nothing in it. And I told now Multi like, hey, can you check out this website? And it was like, there's not even curl. There's nothing in here. And I'm like, be creative. So it built lobster curl just by like
Its own tool.
it just built its own curl by like using some TCP socket, and like there was like a C compiler, and then it built like a crappy version of curl so it could actually access the website, and it worked.
Crazy.
So like those things are so resourceful. It's incredible.
Yeah. You had some challenges too, where like, people really like taking a look at like, the security issues potentially and expecting you to have everything so robust from day one, although you were just putting an open source project out there.
I always laugh when people ask me like, oh yeah, can you put me in with like the CEO or human resources or some other member of my team? And I'm like, it's just me hacking from my cave, basically. That's where you see the dissonance, right?
Yeah.
This would have not been possible by any one human. Yes, I have maintainers now and I get PRs, but essentially I built this.
Yeah.
Even a year ago, it wouldn't have been possible. There is no model for like something like this could be built by one person. So it's not even, they don't even consider that.
Right. Yeah. Let's actually touch on that. Like, I think on your like productivity, because I'm sure like many developers must be wondering like, how is Peter so productive? And I was looking at your GitHub again this morning, and I saw it's like 90,000 contribution on more than 120 projects just this past year. But what's also interesting is like, the past year started very white on the GitHub activity graph, and then light green, and then into fall around October, November, it's very dark green.
Yeah. That's where
What happened?
I switched to Codex. Like with every generation, they got better. But it's not just that the agents got better, the harnesses got better. Also, my understanding of how to approach this and my workflow got better. There's these people that they write software in the old way, and the old way is going to go away. And they call it vibe coding. I think vibe coding is a slur. And then they try AI. But they don't understand that it's a skill. You pick up the guitar, you're not going to be good at the guitar on the first day. So they're going to have a bad experience, and then they're like, oh no, it's not going to work. While if you approach it more like playful, you have to learn. You have to like, I have a gut feeling now for like which prompt will and how long it'll take. And if it takes longer, I reflect, oh, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe my architecture is wrong. My thinking was wrong, or maybe something else. Just as with code, if you write code and you have a feeling of, oh, this naturally goes into my architecture, or this is I'm fighting the system, and it just takes time.
And so if people want to become more like you, what is your Codex setup today? Because I think you famously said like most people overcomplicate their setup.
I mean, I also overcomplicated my setup. I call it the Agentic trap. from your first touch point in that new technology to like becoming really effective, a lot of people get stuck in there trying to like super optimize their setup. It doesn't really make you more productive, but it feels like you're more productive. So like I put out this one blog post that was also very controversial, but I just talk to it. Like you just approach it like a conversation. Like your model is like it's not really pair programming. It's something different. You know, it's a conversation. I basically tell what I want. I always ask the model, do you have any questions? For some reason, like there's always questions about the model by default is trained to just solve your problem and then would just make assumptions. The default assumptions might not always be the best ones. Especially you have to remember it's trained with a lot of code and also a lot of older code. Do you have any questions? Is like a very important question. People don't realize that the model usually starts with a blank slate because they don't learn like us. Like every new session is like, I know nothing about this code base and I'll just search and find the little things that you asked me to and then try to solve it. But they don't see usually the whole picture. If you do this properly, you have to have the full picture in your head and you have to like help the model a little bit to motivate it to like look here, look there. And Codex is just much better at taking a broad look first. I used a very basic approach. I don't even use work trees. I just have check out 1 to 10 basically. Keeping it simple helps me to focus more on the actual problem. Yeah. So I don't even want to deal with branches or work trees. I just focus on different problems. Ideally, that gets easier if the project becomes a little bit larger, then you can work on different things that don't fight each other so much.
You used Codex a ton to build OpenClaw.
Yeah.
How has Codex changed the way you work?
Well, I tried a lot of tools. And what I like about Codex is that my trust in it building what I want from all the tools right now is the highest. And the number of things that just work is really high. And I don't think what people realize is that with GPT 5.2, it was again like a quantum leap in terms of, this will just work. I'm still amazed how well this already works.
That's fantastic. We can just build things. This is pretty incredible.
Yeah, like people need to give this a try.
You famously said also that like you're shipping code now that you're not even reading. Yeah. How has that changed?
Most code is boring. Like most code just transforms one shape of data into another shape of data. And eventually the user sees it or it goes somewhere else. So like on most code it writes, I have a pretty good understanding of what it writes. And it's enough to like that I see the stream and see that, okay, like the mental model I have in my head of what it creates is approximately what it creates. I led a team before, right? I had a lot of software engineers under me. And that also requires accepting that they will not write exactly the same code that I want. In the end, you should optimize a code base so agents can do their best work, which is not always the same as humans can do their best work.
Right.
It also means accepting that maybe the code is not exactly how I would like it, how I would write it. And I could push the model towards that. But oftentimes, there's so many ways how you can structure something that often it doesn't matter. If it becomes a performance problem, you just focus on that, you make it better.
And your point that you just made on like, you kind of like the value of code and how you approach code is also changing a lot how you approach open source, right? Because like I was looking at like OpenClaw, you now have like 2,000 PRs open right now.
Yeah, you're all crazy.
Before we had like AI, you would have to read all of these PRs because there was value in the code being created. But sometimes now you refer to that as like not a pull request, but a prompt request almost, because like more the idea or the intention behind the PR that's more important than the code itself.
PRs actually sometimes take me longer than if I would approach it myself, because my trust in the model not being malicious is much higher than an external contributor that I never heard of before and where we had no discussion before. So I have to scrutinize that a little bit more. But then if I see a PR, I start the review and my first question to the model is, do you understand the intent of the PR? Because I don't really care about the code. I care about what is that person actually trying to solve. It's more like an issue with like here's my attempt of a solution. But first of all, many people still don't really know how to yield their agent. And then often it's just a very localized solution because they don't have the full system in their head. The hard part is, how does this little new feature fit into my bigger system? Or how does this little fix, this little fix fixes a tiny thing, but is it even the right fix? It's probably often it's like a more systemic or an architecture issue. So the model is actually really good if you just have a conversation. And when I say, okay, now build this, then it will start to build this. So I asked the model, what's the intent? Is that the most optimal solution? Sometimes it says yes. Most often it would say no. Then I would start to explore what would be the best fix. Is this like an architectural problem? Is this something that is, let's say it's a problem in message handling? Does it only affect WhatsApp or maybe also, I don't know, Signal?
Yeah.
So should we solve this in a more general way? Is this a new feature? Do we even want a new feature? So sometimes those discussions go on for like 10, 15 minutes. I use like voice because it's literally like you talk to a very smart coworker.
Easier to give tokens of a voice than like typing.
Yeah. When I'm happy, then I have like one / command, like land PR, that explains the whole procedure to like actually create a branch, do all the changes, and get the PR merged. I wanted to create a community, so I try to still credit the person that created it, even though the whole thing takes me longer than if I would just write it all myself.
Right.
But I appreciate that people want to be part of this.
What's your vision for OpenClaw now going forward with all of these contributors that are kind of like surrounding the project? And do you see yourself as kind of a trailblazer for this idea of like what a personal AI agent should look like so that, 1 billion people can one day use something like that?
Yeah. I want to find the balance between this is something that my mom can install, but also this is something that's fun and hackable, which is difficult. Most open source projects, you like download the package. But for the longest time, my default install was git clone, build, run. And then you literally have the source code on disk, and the agent sits in the source code and is aware of the source code. And if you don't like anything, you literally prompt the agent and it would change itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like actual self-modifying software. So a lot of people that never sent me a PR sent me a PR. That's also why it's more like a prompt request, because they just like the understanding of how to build software that lasts. And at the same time, the whole world or the whole security industry is like putting their eyes on it, which has been interesting and also a little bit frustrating because it misses some nuance, right? For example, the web server that I have. That's meant for you. Initially, I built it for debugging, and then I made it pretty, but it's only meant to be accessible in your network, in your trusted network. But because it should also be like a hacker's paradise, there is an option how you can like change that. Right. Because like some people have weird setups, maybe they use like ngrok, maybe they use reverse proxies. So there is a reason why I didn't want to like limit that. But now you have like people that put it on the open internet, even though I'm screaming in a security document, please don't do that. That's not what it's intended for. And then I have the security people that point out that, oh yeah, it doesn't have login limitations, like it doesn't have all these things that you need when it's on the public internet. I'm like, yeah, I didn't build it for that, with that intention, but because it is configurable, it totally counts as a CVSS 10. So yeah, I struggled a little bit with that. But now I brought on actually a security expert. That's the main focus. I realize I cannot stop people from using it in ways it was not intended. So my big focus now is to like support all these use cases and help people not shoot themselves in the foot.
Right. And that's the beauty of open source. People can embrace it and like come up with ideas that you didn't even think about.
Yeah, that's the beauty and the madness of it.
Yeah. Zooming out maybe for a second beyond OpenClaw, like I've talked to a bunch of developers this week. We knew you were coming to the Codex hackathon, and they told me how come does like Peter come up with all these great ideas? Like how does Peter come up with so much creativity? I don't know if you have any answer to that, or if it's more like your own curiosity that you're following.
It's more like this realization that stuff's easy now. So even if I find an open source thing that maybe solves my problem to 70%, I just build it myself, which would have been absolutely impossible a year ago even. And now it's just like, I just prompt it and it's on the second screen and Codex works.
We're both from Europe. When I travel outside of SF and I go back to Europe, I'm sure you feel the same way. Like many developers and engineers have not embraced Codex and agentic tools just yet. What would be your advice for them, like as they get started and like should rethink the way they work and their workflow?
My first advice always is like, approach it in a playful way. Build something that you always wanted to build. If you're at least a little bit of a builder, there has to be something on the back of your mind that you want to build. Like just play. You just have to approach this thing playful. Because like I think the NVIDIA CEO said that in the near term you're not going to replace by AI. You're going to be replaced by someone who uses
Which
AI.
is, yeah, better than you, yeah.
But if your identity is I wanna create things, I wanna solve problems. If you're a high agency, if you're smart, you will be in more demand than ever.
Yeah, well, it's such a great time for builders who embrace these tools, shape their curiosity, and really can bring any ideas to life the exact same way you've done with all of these great projects and OpenClaw.
I think in a year this is gonna explode.
Yeah, 2026 will be an interesting one. I think it's a fantastic way to end. Thank you so much, Peter, for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful to spend time with you. We all at OpenAI love your work. We love supporting builders like yourself. And honestly, you're a true inspiration for the broader developer community. Thanks again, and we can't wait to see what you're going to work on next.